Mr. Commissioner, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, also a warm welcome from my side. I thank you very much for the presenters of the first session for having given us already a very comprehensive introduction to the subject that we are discussing these 1.5 days. As it has been pointed out, the ability of law enforcement authorities to investigate and prosecute crime much depends on the availability and accessibility of data which is very often held by service providers on systems which they possess or control, and systems which might be located very often outside Europe. Under such circumstances, law enforcement authorities need the assistance of service providers, either in terms of gathering data which is transmitted by the suspect or persons related to the suspect themselves, or by providing data generated by the service providers about the communication activities of the suspect or persons related to the suspect. Of course, in national criminal procedure, we have rules how law enforcement authorities cooperate with service providers. However, there are many uncertainties about the scope of application of these national rules. In particular, we face today a situation where many of these service providers are headquartered outside the EU, but somehow virtually still present in the jurisdiction in the member states by offering services. Traditionally, cooperation with service providers abroad would be carried out by mutual legal assistance. Judicial cooperation, however, at least in our traditional understanding, is a cooperation which happens between national judicial authorities. It is maintained, and we heard this morning from Minister Braz, that obtaining evidence through judicial cooperation is a matter of months or years rather than days or hours. So there is a clear need to improve the speed and efficiency of investigations, and this leads actually to a paradigm change in judicial cooperation. Classic judicial cooperation is increasingly replaced by a practice where national law enforcement authorities directly engage with foreign internet service providers or directly access data which is held abroad. Common to these new forms or new practices is that they do not involve anymore, or at least I say do not necessarily involve anymore, the foreign judicial authority. I say in brackets necessarily because we heard this morning from Minister Braz that at least there should be a notification requirement to the foreign judicial authority. In any case, what we see in practice is that judicial authorities try to open up avenues for domestic law enforcement to directly engage with foreign service providers or with data which is located abroad. This, of course, needs a clear legal framework. Also, in order to clarify how this, what we may call direct penetration, should coexist with classic judicial cooperation. This raises, of course, very unique and difficult issues of balancing three interests. On the one hand, the interest of the law enforcement authorities to have access to data speedily and in an efficient way. On the other hand, the interest of the users of all of these services to their privacy, and not at least the interest of the service providers. And we have heard this morning that making the technical capacity available, that service providers can actually obtain the data, detain the data, and deliver the data up to the law enforcement authorities is a considerable cost and effort for these service providers. So it is up to the policymakers, both European and national policymakers, to balance these interests, and this comes at a very timely moment of European Union law, because we are just in the moment, or in the pre-moment, so to say, in the face of entry into force of the European investigation order, a new instrument of the European Union to actually render mutual legal assistance more efficient. We shall discuss these policy challenges by starting with the European perspective, and I would like to introduce Ms. Vera Jourova, Commissioner for Justice, Consumers and Gender Equality of the European Union since 2014. Ms. Jourova has a very broad portfolio, including criminal justice, including the European Public Prosecutor's Office, but also including access to electronic evidence. Thank you very much for having accepted our invitation, and the floor is yours.